Meanwhile, Moscow launched 67 missiles and nearly 200 drones against Ukraine's energy and gas infrastructure overnight. The strikes hit targets across the country, from Kharkiv in the east all the way to Ternopil in the west. And despite incendiary language aimed almost exclusively at the Ukrainian president since he returned to the White House in January, on Friday, Donald Trump threatened new sanctions.
Hey, maybe I have an idea. What if you didn't undermine the proxy for the past 2 months? What if you hadn't done that while simultaneously trying to put forth a negotiation? I think that probably would have been better, don't you think? I think perhaps that would have been the smart play here, which would have been to basically reverse the roles, right? Like the way that Trump treats Israel, he should treat Ukraine like that. And the way that Trump treats Ukraine, he should treat, well, no one should treat any country like Israel, let's be real. But like, you know, closer to the way that he treats Israel with respect to Ukraine, while also getting everybody to the table to put forth a ceasefire, a real ceasefire and a real negotiation. But instead, he's just a bad guy. Not infinite weapons for Ukraine. That's not what I was saying at all. But he is being a bad person. He just wants to be wrong on every issue and wants to be on the wrong side of every issue, no matter what. Seemingly, he did the things that he's been doing and stopped intelligence sharing with Ukraine, which was kind of crazy. And Russia has just been pummeling Ukraine nonstop.
So today, Donald Trump has just announced that he is calling on Russia to get to the negotiating table. That, I think, follows those attacks overnight that you were just referring to, with those 60 missile attacks and 200 drone attacks in Ukrainian territory. I'll read you this statement from President Trump. He says, based on the fact that Russia is pounding Ukraine on the battlefield, I'm strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement has been reached. And then he says to Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it is too late. So a strong-worded threat from President Trump.
So I do also find it very funny that the anti-China warhawk neoliberals are going to be eating a lot of crow, considering what the Chinese foreign minister said about the American dynamic that is overtly pro-Russia. China came out and said Trump's two-faced policies are wrong and that you can't have negotiations with Russia without Ukraine at the table. What is my man doing? What is Donald Trump? What is JD Pondon doing? Actually, what the hell is going on? And he's like doing cryptocurrency schemes. The job market is not looking too hot. And this is before they factor in the layoffs that are ongoing, right, in the at the federal agencies. Beijing, China's top foreign policy official Wang Yi cast Beijing as a force for good and blasted the U.S. for being two-faced at a news conference during China's annual session of parliament on Friday. Wang was asked directly if Trump's retreat from multilateral forums, freezing on foreign aid and strained relations with allies, presented a strategic opening for China on the global stage. He demurred. Imagine if every country prioritized itself above all else and placed blind faith in power and status. This world would regress to the law of the jungle, where smaller and weaker nations would bear the brunt of instability, and the international order and rule-based system would face severe disruption, Wang said. He said major powers have a responsibility to fulfill their international obligations and act with accountability. Pursuing self-interest at the expense of others or wielding power to intimidate is unacceptable. President Trump's tilt towards Russia has raised questions about him doing a possible reverse Nixon, i.e. cozying up to Moscow to isolate Beijing, flipping President Nixon's script from the early 1970s. This is what I've been talking about as well, by the way. Remember? They want to do a reverse Sino-Soviet split, basically, which not sure how successful that would be in general, but it does seem like they're entertaining that. When America engaged in a detente with China, the pressure of the Soviet Union, its primary Cold War rival. But Wang said the historical logic of China's good relations with Russia was steadfast. I want to emphasize that regardless of changes in the international landscape, the historic logic of the China-Russia friendship remains unchanged, and the internal driving forces behind our relationship remain strong. Both sides have deeply reflected on historical experiences and have committed to long-term good neighborly relations, comprehensive strategic coordination, mutually beneficial cooperation. This approach best serves the fundamental interests of both peoples and aligns with the broader trends of the global developments and progress. China and Russia have established a unique model of engagement, one that is non-aligned, non-confrontational, and not directed at any third party, he said. In terms of the Ukraine war, China has tried to position itself as a potential mediator able to help bring the war in Ukraine to an end. But since Trump's foreign policy shift towards Russia, Beijing has been largely left on the sidelines. China welcomes and supports all efforts aimed at achieving peace. This is a position that they've had since day one. However, it is also important to recognize that this crisis has deep and complex historical roots. It was not created overnight and cannot be resolved overnight. He said China is willing to work with the international community in line with the wishes of the relevant parties to play a constructive role in achieving lasting resolution. The world must move towards a new security vision based on common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. Only by doing so, we can achieve peace and stability, not just in Eurasia, but across the entire world, he said. He also had some statements about Gaza as well. But from what I understand, China's envoy to the EU, Liu Xiaoye, appalled by Trump's treatment of Europe. This is from the South China Morning Post. China's special envoy for European affairs, Liu Xiaoye, said he was appalled by the way President Donald Trump had treated American allies in Europe, adding that a peace deal for Ukraine should not be determined only by the U.S. and Russia. When you look at how the Trump administration has implemented a brazen and domineering policy towards Europe, treating its allies in this way, honestly, from a European perspective, it's quite appalling, he said. Horrible take on China defending small countries and shamming U.S. peace talks while they did nothing to stop the war for 3 years, supported Russia all the way, and keep an eye on Taiwan, glaze China for what they do good, don't act like a sheep, says Tolkien Society. You're not right. You're incorrect about this. China currently is outflanking the United States and has consistently outflanked the United States in terms of what I think is achievable. China is on the side of Russia. It is a conditional ally to Russia in this. Russia is the party that is committing the wrong. That much is correct. As far as no, China does. China has a conditional allegiance to Russia. That is 100% correct. I don't think it's inappropriate to say that. Maybe they don't have as much hands-on support like the DPRK, for example, which is ironic because I'm certain that the DPRK Russian allegiance in that regard is something that China doesn't like anyway, because they like having the DPRK as like a security barrier for themselves. Having said that, however, in terms of trying to find a manageable negotiation out of this situation, China has always been committed to coming to the table to do a ceasefire. They literally did a Brazil plan, and now they're also outflanking the United States once again by stating that yes, Ukraine should be at the table. China should also be at the table as the other side, the America of the other side, I guess, but with demonstrable restraint in comparison to the United States of America in terms of their foreign policy. Do they dominate other countries in the South China Sea, for example, like the Philippines? Absolutely, they do. It is marginal in comparison to what the United States of America does all around the globe. If you're looking at these two as major world powers and comparing one's actions all around the world to the other, it's fairly tame and incredibly restrained. If America had a similar limited foreign policy attitude, I would not be as critical of American foreign policy. This is something that I try to explain to Americans in general. They don't understand it, even though I myself am American. I wish that the United States of America would demonstrate restraint when they're engaging with other countries as well. Why would China try and stop a war that it did not start? Why did the U.S. and U.K. sabotage talks between Ukraine and Russia in the early phases? Why did Zelensky reject the China-Brazil plan, which did not ask for any rare earths from Ukraine? Yeah, no, I that's what I brought forth as well. I think China has been, I wish that America would have a similar attitude in terms of managing the conflict. It's pure cope to look at the situation and just try to somehow turn around and be like, but no, they're being two-faced. Dog, look at our guy, okay? Look at us. This is our guy, okay? This is you and I. That's our president. Do you understand? That's our president still dunking on Zelensky, who is the wronged party here. Dunking on our ally. What do you mean? How are you still in this process looking at other major powers around the world and how they're trying to manage this situation and going, no, they're still worse though. Think with your brain, please. How aggressive are they towards Russia, China? I mean, no, not aggressive at all. Russia is outside of the sphere of Western influence. It's long been a foreign adversary, even after the dissolution of the USSR. This is precisely the reason why, just like with Iran, just like all of these other countries like Venezuela, there is basically a network of countries that have been cast aside by Western imperialism, and they have conditional relationships with one another. Like they have an allegiance with one another because they see it as they see any opportunity to coexist outside of the American periphery as they'll take it. This is why the Trump administration's accelerated accelerated sanction strategy that Joe Biden actually went crazy with created this secondary market around the globe. Because if you sanction every country, all of a sudden you have now sanctioned no country. You are just sanctioning yourself at that point. They don't have any other choice. They have no alternative. They have to work with one another because America forces their hand.
And we're talking, would I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now. And I put a statement in, a very strong statement.
We got all the cards. They got none of the cards. We got all the cards. Cards are ours.
And
PSA 10, I opened the cards. I say to myself, that's a new Pokemon. I will this Pokemon.
Get on the ball and get a job done. Michael, could you come up here? I see Michael back there. Good, I'm glad. He's traveling all over the world. I just saw him come in the door. Could you give a little definition of what's going on, please?
Sure. Well, the president has been crystal clear, and he's been clear to all sides. The fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economies together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track. Secretary Rubio, myself and the Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I gotta hand it to Megaphonics on this take. You clock this. The fighting has to stop, sounding like an ineffectual Brandon. No, the Brandonization of Trump is clear here, okay? When it comes down to Ukraine, he does sound like Brandon. Just like Brandon was Benjamin Netanyahu's little bitch boy, Trump is behaving like Vladimir Putin's little bitch boy, where everyone's got their favorites. Everyone's got their favorites, baby. I'm working tirelessly for a ceasefire. Now, of course, I can't believe I'm saying this, but to be fair to Trump, which is a weird statement to make, Russia is a foreign adversary, which is precisely the reason why bringing them to the negotiation table is very different than bringing Israel to the negotiations table and making them do whatever we want, whatever we want them to do, because Israel does not exist without our unconditional support and loyalty. It's not the same for Russia. So it is trickier and more difficult to manage that situation. Having said that, however, he is still very much hitting I would say 65% Brandonization on the Brandon meter with this whole, I'm working tirelessly around the clock for a ceasefire, believe me.
He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see, it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president has said, this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add, the president has had multiple conversations and a visit from President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. We have the NATO Secretary General coming next week. We have this meeting with the Ukrainians. We've had it with the Russians. All of this in the president's first month in his leadership. We will engage in the shuttle diplomacy, and we will continue to use his leadership and what leverage we have to get both sides of the peace table. It's not going to be easy, but President Trump...
This war should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen. So a lot of other things shouldn't have happened, too. We shouldn't have 21 million people pouring into our country through open borders, many of whom are criminals, very bad criminals, including murderers, thousands of murderers.
Donald Trump says he believes Putin wants peace.
He killed far more than one person, and they're roaming our streets. But Tom Homan and Kristi Noem are doing an incredible job, and we're getting them out of here. All these things shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have inflation. We shouldn't have had this horrible inflation where the prices have gone up. Look at eggs. So we're doing...
Dog, you're president now, though. I don't get it. You're president now. What happened? You said the previous president was responsible for the inflation. That's a big part of how you got elected. So I just don't understand. Like, it seems to me like what they presented as what the Democrats were doing, which is just like woke and gay shit and not fixing the cost of living crisis. They've just basically done the exact reversal of that, which is the anti-woke and anti-gay shit and not fixing the cost of living crisis. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it kind of feels like these guys are all not really interested in fixing some of these underlying material realities that impact the working class of the United States. Well, it doesn't take a month to fix everything, especially inflation, but respect to you for what you do. Yeah, perhaps inflation is not immediately related to whoever is in charge. That's number one. A reality that like Republicans refuse to reckon with. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, this cost of living crisis that has been ongoing is not going to be fixed by Donald Trump's solutions. He never actually had any solutions, as a matter of fact.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
He just simply made it seem as though coming in and saying we're going to eliminate woke, we're going to eliminate DEI is going to somehow magically make prices go down. It was not. That was not the case. That was never the case. That's why everybody goes fell for it again award over and over again on Twitter.
Two questions. One on peace. Why don't you think any other European countries are offering a peace deal? It seems like no one's come to the table for peace except for you.
Yeah. It's...
Dude, the quality of the, I don't even want to call this a question, but like the quality of the glazed statements that you get from these new pressers have absolutely passed dear leader status, okay? I'm watching quote unquote journalists do new types of tricks on it, okay? Types of tricks that I did not know Americans were capable of doing. Like, I mean, let's run that question back. Hold on. I want to run this back. Let's hear what let's hear this question, okay? I need you to pay attention to this question.
He's a kind person.
Well, according to
although not to Zelensky, he wasn't.
Well, you know what? That's another.
This is the guy. This is the human heart disease that was like telling Zelensky why he wasn't wearing a suit from Right Side Broadcasting News. Okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend. Let's take a look at what his question is.
But to Trump, he's been good. Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Nice tie, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I like yours too.
Two questions. One on peace. Why don't you think any other European countries are offering a peace deal? It seems like no one's come to the table for peace except for you.
Yeah.
Mr. President, why is no one else as peaceful as you are, sir? Why is no one else interested in doing peace? Why are you the only one, Mr. President?
It's a very good question. Sometimes questions are...
It is crazy because, like, he is flossing with Donald Trump's pubes at this point. This is dick riding that should be illegal. I think you should go to jail if you suck the president like this hard.
Russia hoax. I've always had a good relationship with Putin. He wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things. Because frankly, you could have made a great deal if this war never started, you could have made a great deal. I don't know that anything would have had to be given up. This was not a war that was going to start, Brian.
Yeah.
It didn't start. For 4 years, somebody said, well, how do we know that? Well, for 4 years, it didn't start. So anyway, it's going to be a big thing. It's an interesting time in the history of the world.
Well, he's not wrong about that. He's definitely playing a role in that, being an interesting time. How does anyone think this guy is presidential material? What do you mean? He's the GOAT. He's fixing everything, dude. He's killing it. He's the greatest of all time. He's gonna finally make the egg prices go down. He's doing day one peace.
When is this from? Now?
This is from earlier in the day.
Your allies are calling on you to pardon Derek Chauvin. Are you considering pardoning Derek Chauvin?
No, I haven't even heard about it.
Oh my God, Ben Shapiro, you're so f***ing washed. Ben,
No
you're
motion,
washed.
Mr. Zero Motion.
Yo, you are so washed, dude. That video got 75,000 views in 2 days.
Oh yeah, right. We looked at that.
Yeah,
that was
or like
crazy.
50,000.
But also, like again, I stand by what I said. It was but it was entirely CYA for him because if you Googled before this month, if you Googled Ben Shapiro, Derek Chauvin, you would get the video where for like the first time in Ben Shapiro's like miserable life, he showed some humanity or empathy or whatever. Thought it was like that's
can't
not
have
right.
that. Nope.
No, but so now when you Google Ben Shapiro, Derek Chauvin, even though there was probably never going to be a chance of the pardon because Trump can't free the guy because he's serving the state sentence. He's like now Ben Shapiro has solved his problem. All I can say is that like it's it's impressively cynical even for like a shit stain like Ben Shapiro. Like that's pretty impressive.
I haven't heard that.
In the first term, you may recall, I broke the news that you were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And the reason for that was the work that you led on the Abraham Accords. I spoke yesterday with the member of parliament, the Norwegian parliament, that nominated you. And he said what the Nobel Committee is looking for from you, Mr. President, is
like he's like a draft prospect
for Ukraine. Is that a possibility?
Even the people who
Mr.
glaze
President?
him do it weird.
Yeah.
So before I even think about that, I want to settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that, the prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them. We're losing 2,000 human beings every week. More than that, actually. 2,000 nice, young.
I know that like notoriously the Russia-Ukraine war has been very secretive. Like our intelligence communities have been notoriously and unceremoniously secretive about the casualty numbers of Ukraine.
And Ukrainians are because everybody is. Nobody has an incentive to be honest about it.
It's 100% like information warfare. Russia is lying about their casualty numbers, saying, "Oh, we're doing fantastic," and Ukraine is also lying about their casualty numbers versus the Russian casualty numbers. It's the same shit, right? And there are obviously incentives for that. There's obviously an understandable reason for that. But what has been shocking for me, at least, is like our intelligence apparatus is normally on this. You know what I mean? They will reveal the truth to at least like congressional representatives, and even they have been upset about not knowing what the situation is, like what the actual situation is on the ground. So I don't know where the hell Trump is getting these numbers from. Like, I don't know if Trump is getting this info now and he's just like turning around and saying like they're dying, 2,000 people are dying every week.
I mean, it is like what we know about how Trump was presented with information from in like term one. Like, for example, Alex Thompson, who is the one co-writing the book about Biden and the age stuff. He in his Trump one term, he had like Alex broke the story that he got like the meme binder, like the file of images from the internet that would make him smile that was printed out. And I do think that like he probably is, like every president gets briefings tailored to their personality and style. Like Ronald Reagan, and this is in the 80s, he like was so famously averse to reading that they would make a video for him to be his briefing. So in Trump's case, like, yeah, I'm sure he's getting like some kind of briefing. He's getting some kind of figures. Like, I'm sure these numbers are coming from somewhere. Whether or not it's like the secret, actual, straight, like whether it's like the real shit or whatever. Like, I think it's Trump magic not to let us know whether that's so, where it's coming from.
Although they're getting older because they're drafting much older now. In the case of one country, much older, because a lot of the young people have been killed. It's very sad, and I'd like to see if I could stop that.
Wait, what? He's saying that the young people are being killed. That's why they're the soldiers in the ranks are much older. No, dog. They're older because they don't want to draft younger people. They don't want to completely shut off their next generation. Am I wrong on this? Isn't that the case? Like they don't. they've lowered the draft age multiple times at this point. But I thought that the real reason why, the age of all of the average age of like the Ukrainian defense force person is like 40 plus or something, and that's because young people are not getting drafted yet. No, it's not because they're killing the youth. It's because, one, if you're a young Ukrainian man, you probably got the fuck out of Ukraine, which is perfectly reasonable. Oh, he's talking about Russia? Wait, what? He's talking about the Russian military? No, I think he's talking about the Ukrainian one.
I'd like to also see if we could stop making these massive payments from the United States. I mean, Biden gave away money like it was water, with no anything, got nothing for it. Europe did it in the form of a loan. They get their money back, we don't. So that's how we came up with the rare earth deal. But we started, behind the eight ball. He could have gone to Europe. He could have said, come on, you got to put up money with us. You got to put up money with us. But he never did that. They just kept handing money out because he was grossly incompetent. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was doing his classic trail off anyway.
Did America pay anyone back for helping with 9/11? No, that's not how this works. I don't think. Also, like our weapons deals that we're doing with our European partners, as far as like NATO deals goes, it's directly benefiting the military industrial complex. It's our manufacturing industry that helps or that gets a lot of those contracts. That's how this works. Russia says sending European peacekeepers to Ukraine would be act of war.
Putin says Russia will not retreat from Ukraine and give away anything that belongs to us. He made the comments while speaking to widows and mothers of Russian soldiers killed following his full-scale invasion.
By the way, I personally think the reason why Putin is like escalating its bombing campaign and coming out and saying stuff like this is literally because Donald Trump is constantly undermining Zelensky.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, it's just like he has maximum. I mean, when Trump is saying like Putin, he has maximum leverage, then like why wouldn't you act like you have maximum leverage? It's 100% just the most like intuitive.
100%. Art of the deal, baby. I saw another thing that is also insane. I'm Mr. Easing sanctions for everybody, okay? But the fact that the White House has asked the Treasury Department to explore options for easing energy sanctions ahead of expected talks between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin is wild. He's behaving like the way Democrats behave against Republicans.
I mean, what I can't understand...
Conceding before you get to the table is wild.
What remains like unclear to me is the extent to which it's like, is he doing all this because he legitimately believes that like this is how you achieve like this is how you frame as maximum like political victory, like what the end of the war looks like? Or is it like part of a larger strategy where it's like, all right, we want to make U.S. and Russia friends again, aligned against China and Europe in part now? Like like how it coalesces as strategy remains unclear to me.
I think he just watched the Tucker Carlson interview and was like, I think Vladimir Putin does want to be America's Israel too. And he liked it. He believed him. He was like, yeah, why haven't we made Russia Israel? That's crazy. Yeah, lift all the sanctions, give them unlimited. This is going to end up with Donald Trump doing unlimited weapons transfers to Russia.
Oh my God.
So they can blow up, so they can Gazify Ukraine. He's going to be like, yeah, that's right. Russians have a right to exist. You are being quite Russophobic.
He is. I mean, it already is on some level. Like that is like what is people, because part of it is they're not framing this in terms of like any kind of, like to me anyway, like they're not trying to justify it in like some like grand moral sense. Like it's all just like power politics stuff. Like, no, this is the way the world works. This is the way it is or whatever. And like where that's supposed to go again, like remains unclear to me.
Yeah. He's just, or maybe he's just a bad dude. He just likes he is morally consistent in terms of whoever is, he's morally consistent in terms of might is right. Where he's like, whoever is the more powerful or the larger army, larger military, I'm on board with them. I just like winners. I don't like losers. I'm going to help the winners in every situation.
I mean, it is like, look, man, there are some famous people throughout history who have admired those who best reflect the will to power in their time. And I don't think it's at all shocking that Donald Trump identifies with that too.
Did you see the Chinese diplomats coming out and being like, Ukraine and China have to be a part of this
this is
conversation?
Like, I do think that there has always been people like have overread into the like strategic partnership that China and Russia announced after the invasion. Like people read that as like, oh, China's just endorsing everything Russia's doing.
But there's been reporting on this. I don't know if it's correct or not. I don't know if it's just like, making Vladimir Putin look even more dangerous, or in the process making China look better. But like there's been reporting on the fact that like Chinese envoys were responsible for scaling back Vladimir Putin's like nuclear escalations in the past.
Well, and moreover, like I also think that like it's not just China. Like China is
Western reporting, by the way, not like
China's. There are other countries that are also do trade, also have meaningful bilateral relationships with both sides of the aisle here. I mean, Vietnam, for example, there was the Vietnamese diplomats like posed with Ukrainian officials for a photo I saw at a recent international conference. Like there is like a broad, like countries that have reasons that aren't about like, oh, like do we think Russia's in the right or the most right here, but are just like thinking from the perspective of like I would like our territorial integrity to be preserved. And we don't want to, we don't want to like set precedents that could bite us in the ass or whatever. Like at a minimum, that kind of logic is surely like, that's surely what a lot of these types of countries are thinking about, to say nothing of like what they actually do think about the morals of it.